First of all, thank you all for having me, and thank you guys for taking a little bit of time. I know that it is probably the most precious thing that we have in life these days. I know everyone has lots and lots kind of on their plates, both personally in school, professionally. So I have a lot of gratitude for you guys taking a little bit of time. So I'd love to share. First of all, I'd like to say that whether you are an undergrad, a grad student in medical school, or studying history, or whatever the case may be, I was a government and peace studies major in undergrad. And today I find myself in healthcare IT, working with everybody from software engineers to physicians to nurses to health policy people in this amazing world in healthcare, which is, as you know, probably the largest industry on the planet now, and the importance of the work requires so many people from kind of different walks of life to figure out how to contribute. And so regardless of kind of where you're coming from and what you're studying, lots of really kind of neat opportunities, the first thing. The second thing is I thought I would just do 3 to 5 minutes of a little bit of background so you kind of understand how this whole thing kind of came about, and then give you a little bit of a snapshot of the work we're doing today, and then spend hopefully most of our time answering any questions you all kind of might have around what's happening. Is that a decent enough plan? Good? Cool. So a little bit of history. So I was actually at Georgetown between 1997 and 2002, doing a graduate degree in law and business. So I was doing a JD MBA, and 3 years into my joint degree program, was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer that back about 20 years ago had about a 50% chance, with the at the time current regimens of actually chemotherapy and radiation, surgery, every combination of things you would get, to have a 5-year survival. And so I was literally in the middle of grad school preparing for my exams in the spring, and ended up in the ED with a lot of pain in my lower back and stomach. Ended up, it was so funny. I'd been engaged for 3 months at a time. And so every night when I get home from either the law school or the business school, I'd return home, and my fiance at the time would come home from her job, and she always would be clutching these wedding magazines, wanting to talk about like place settings and all kinds of stuff. But I pretended I wanted to talk about it. But on this day at the hospital, I woke up after this little surgical procedure to kind of figure out what was happening inside of my body, creating all this pain. And I woke up and I looked to my left, and there was Wendy clutching these same wedding magazines, but it was like tears rolling down her face. And then to my right on the bed tray was this photograph of the inside of my stomach. And what it showed was like a tumor about the size of a tangerine or a small orange that turned out to be cancer, and kind of thus began kind of our journey. I went through another surgery and a bunch of chemotherapy over the summer, and returned to grad school with like a bald head and a handful of pounds lighter from my treatments, but really focused on one simple thing, and that was the medical treatment and medical outcome that I had gotten up at Johns Hopkins was amazing. The experience from a patient and family standpoint was far less than amazing, and we were like just so focused on trying to figure out a way to simply make healthcare better for the next person up, because when you are a patient or a family thrust into healthcare, the system of healthcare is so complicated, as are the clinical regimens, that to the consumer of it, it is confusing and anxiety provoking and expensive, and all the things you actually don't want an experience around something important to be. So at a time in your life where you actually need to be and want to be informed, empowered, activated, engaged in a way where you can make the very best decisions with a clear mind about the most important thing in your life, people don't seem to have the time for you. The information is confusing. The acronyms are even more confusing. The medication, you can't even pronounce them. And so all the things that kind of go around delivering healthcare are very difficult for those who are receiving the care to be able to handle. And so we had a concept during school. I had 1 year left in my grad program, and my professors and my classmates at Georgetown, I am so grateful for the openness, for the flexibility, for like the love and care and support of taking my experience and helping me figure out whether or not it was unique or common. And it ended up being very common. I wasn't like a special flower. Most people who went through a healthcare experience what I did, and then kind of turning it through my classes into a research project that ultimately became GetWellNetwork. And so a year later, with kind of a business plan in hand that was actually developed and written significantly with and by my classmates and teachers for the final year that I had during grad school. We went out and raised some money to start a company called GetWellNetwork. And the mission of the company has not changed in 20 years. It simply is to help people take a more active role in their health journey. And the way we decided to do that was to work hand in hand with hospitals and clinics and physicians and leaders in healthcare to literally, it's called a B to B to C, so a business to consumer model. So we actually have built a software platform and a bunch of tools that hospitals and health clinics would purchase that then would be put in the hands of the patients, that they actually could become significantly more informed, educated, and empowered consumers of their health, so that they could actually self-navigate and make better decisions, kind of along the way. And so kind of fast forwarding to today, we have just the privilege to work with about, I don't know, we're probably in 700 to 800 kind of sites of care across the United States, Australia, the Middle East, and Canada. We're probably touching 10 million or so patients and families a year, kind of through our tools, and are measuring like crazy the change in outcomes. And so if you help a patient become a more active, involved, engaged, informed patient, well, the damn care gets better, to be honest with you. It gets safer, it gets of higher quality, and it's a better experience. And so we are measuring with data the impact of patient-centered care on the outcomes of care. And that's ultimately kind of what the company does. And so today in the company, you can imagine it's been quite a year, just kind of coming up to speed. And then I want to give you a little bit of like how the company operates, so you can get a sense for like what careers look like at our place. And then we'll talk a bunch about your guys' questions and see if we can just have a dialogue. But so today in the company, we have I don't know, 300 or so employees, and a big chunk of those employees are related to our R&D shop. So we have people that do product design. They're like graphic artists, and they do UX and UI design for kind of software. We have a bunch of hardcore software engineers, from data architects to Java engineers to all kinds of software engineers. We also have a lot of what they call product and project managers. So our product managers are responsible for being externally facing and understanding from a user standpoint, what do our patients, what do our families, what do our nurses, what do our doctors, what do our administrators, what do the users of our software want and need? So they're responsible kind of upstream of figuring out what do people need and kind of writing the requirements, like for the next product, and whatever the thing may be. And then we have project managers that actually manage, the whole team of people, from our product managers to our engineers. And how do you go from a concept for a new kind of feature or product, like all the way through to the release and measurement of whether or not that product or feature is working kind of out in the field. And then once our R&D, which is probably like 35 to 40% of our company, then of course we have a whole commercial operation that then begins to bring this stuff to market. So we have a marketing team, and there's all kinds of stuff from like, where can we go meet, leaders of healthcare organizations who would actually bring our work into their organization, and kind of actually pay money, for this stuff. So we have marketing people that do everything from social media to digital content to events, to building demos, demonstration software, all kinds of stuff. And then we have people who go out and sell. So they literally are going and knocking on the doors of large health systems and hospitals and trying to convince these organizations that when it comes to your consumer digital strategy, GetWellNetwork is the very best platform to help engage, your patients and families kind of around their care. And then we have a whole clinical team of nurses and other clinical folks who actually help do the change management work required to deliver the kind of care that we envision, because this is a patient and family engagement in healthcare is a team sport. It's not just like you flick on software and all of a sudden the care gets better. It really is figuring out, you espouse patient-centered care, but do you actually practice it at every primary care visit, every specialist visit, every hospital visit? Do you actually understand how to train your staff to talk differently and to include people more and to leverage kind of these tools to kind of get people to be more involved? So we have a whole clinical team that actually goes out and teaches people how to do all this stuff. And then we have an entire, operations team at the company that really makes sure that the organization is running efficiently and effectively. So everything from finance to operations to legal. In fact, I was teaching a class down at UVA, and there was a third year law student who had these two offers to go to these large law firms. But I could tell from his questions, he actually didn't really want to take them, but they were great firms. And he had done his summer associate thing. And so after class, I said to him, Cliff, listen, like tomorrow morning, I'm getting on a plane to go to Chicago at 8:40, but call me early in the morning. I want to talk to you for a half hour. Your questions were amazing. And then I want to connect you to people of the company. So long story short, this kid goes from UVA law school, comes up. I talked to him on the phone. He drives up the day later to interview with a bunch of people at his meeting with a bunch of people in the company. And we end up, and today this guy's our general counsel. So we literally hired him like 9 years ago, right from UVA, became the first in-house legal person we actually had at the company. And he's become a complete kind of rock star. So I had no idea he would get into the crazy world of health IT like me. But now we're actually trying to buy a company right now, and he's doing all the purchase agreement on the deal we're trying to do. And he's just an amazing intellectual and kind of team kind of force kind of with us, So that's kind of the other thing I would tell you. And then the last thing I'll just say, because these things really do matter in our company, and the world depends on you guys around this. When you're at a school like Georgetown, the expectations are really high, and the world needs values-based, positive force leaders today more than we ever have. And so in our company, we are very explicit. There's a famous quote in business that says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And in our company, we actually believe that, but we actually think that values sit at the dinner table. They don't even bother with breakfast, right? And so in our company, we started the company with a value statement around these three values that the company holds. Like number one is root for each other. It doesn't mean you always agree. In fact, we purposely are requiring people with a certain amount of intellect and ego so that we actually will debate fiercely, like inside the company, and try to figure out what is the very best thing for our patients and our families and our nurses and our doctors and our customers and our employees and our teammates. But man, once we walk out of that room, you better be really locked arms, because this is truly a team sport. And if we're not together and people don't understand how to work together, we just can't win. So root for each other is the first value. The second value is share openly and honestly. The world is moving so fast that if we have something that we figured out at work that's working well, we better share it with our teammates, not going to hold it for ourselves to try to be hero. And similarly, if we're doing something that actually didn't work, we better also not be afraid to share it, because we don't want to have anyone else waste time to do something else that isn't working, because the world's moving so fast that speed is one of our biggest assets if we share openly and honestly. And then the third kind of value in our place is simply the commitment to be world-class every day. Because in our world, we're this little company in the scheme of this big world. And our customers are literally multi-billion-dollar organizations: Stanford University, MedStar Health, Kaiser Permanente, the Veterans Administration. And so you can imagine like the expectations they have on this little software company to put the trust of their patients' care in our kind of digital hands is immense. And so we have to actually understand like that the pressure is on all the time, and actually get ourselves centered and ready to work in that kind of focused way every single day. And then lately, for the first time in 19 years, when all this stuff happened in the country this summer, and with George Floyd's death, we really leaned in. At the company, we're very explicit. We don't do politics and we don't do religion, but we do people. And we lean in very heavily, on people and on values. And so 2 days after George Floyd's death, we had a town hall on race at the company. that was actually facilitated by our number two person in our company. Happens to be a woman of color. She's a phenomenal talent, Nakia Bergan. And we had Nakia facilitate a town hall on race with a professor at Stanford who actually runs their African American Studies program, with another African American CEO here in DC, and then two of our teammates of color at the company. And from this actually became, some action that the company, and we have a lot of employee-led work groups that really run most of the company. Our culture group, we have a 501c3 that's run by our employees, and we have a diversity, equity, inclusion group that's run by our employees as well. And the first thing they actually wanted to do was actually add, for the first time in 20 years, a fourth value statement to the company, which is a big deal, not a small deal in our company. And the value statement is, in addition to root for each other, share openly and honestly, and be world-class every day, we now have a fourth value literally like sketched on our wall in our art in our office. And it literally says, we find strength in through our differences. And so like I share this with you just so you guys know, as you kind of think about what you want to do for a living. One, our companies depend on you to bring a real clear sense and conviction around what your values are. And you also should be proactively listening for and demanding that the company you go work for's values are in line, with yours, and that you actually have a voice in them. Because the reason for all these businesses is what we would call double bottom line. It is number one, we absolutely have a responsibility to our shareholders, but quite honestly, like we only meet that responsibility if like the other commitments we actually have to move the world forward, we actually meet, and so there's a tremendous opportunity right now in the world for positive force leaders to come into organizations, have a real clear conviction around what you stand for, how hard you are willing to work, and you being a positive force for change, both in the company and the world. That I cannot push on you enough how important that is for us at GetWellNetwork in our recruitment efforts, is around finding people that think kind of double bottom line, if you will, that think about how to build a successful business. But man, in the context of how does the world operate, and what is my place in as an individual, and what is this place as an organization? What's our place in the world for us to advance the world forward, in a positive way? It's really the center of all that we do, and more importantly, who we are, and it's a really important thing for us. So let me kind of stop talking at you, but I wanted to make sure I gave you a little bit of background. Then here's where we came from. Here's what we actually do today. And then kind of as we look forward into bringing new leaders into the organization, those are the kind of people that we actually are looking for all the time. And there hopefully is no better place than right here to find some of them.